Hey y'all, thanks for tuning in. So, if you're a parent, have you ever had your kid, and let me tell you a story about this and then ask you the question. But the other day, um, my 6-year-old was frustrated because he kept asking me to do stuff and I would do the things that he asked me to do if he couldn't do them on his own. And he's like, "Can you get me a fork?" And I was like, "No, you can do that for yourself." And then he was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't do anything for me." So I said, "Really? Not anything? Let's think back to this morning about all the things that you asked me to do." And so he went and got the fork and then he sat back down. And then later I asked him if he would do something for me. So I'm like, "Can you go grab me a towel? Because I need to use it for this." And he was like, "No, I'm not doing that. You wouldn't get me a fork." And I was like, "Oh, word? Okay, so you're not going to get me what I asked you to get for me because of the one thing that I didn't get for you." And then I said, "Cool, I'll go get it for myself, but don't ask me for anything else." And so he was like, it did the little thing that kids always do. And then he gave me the silent treatment. And so his silent treatment was he wasn't going to talk to me. And so I said, "Okay, cool, don't talk to me. That's fine. If you want to give me the silent treatment, give me the silent treatment." And then later, when he needed to ask me for something, you know how that went. So he was like, "Mom, can you? Oh no, you're not talking to me. Remember, you said you weren't talking to me. So don't have selective silent treatment and only use your voice when you have to ask me to do something. Like you're giving me the silent treatment, give me the silent treatment." Little did he know that the silent treatment from him was actually a reprieve for me because if you know anything about 6-year-olds, they talk nonstop. And so when I thought about it later, though, because we've all experienced that from our kids, and perhaps we've experienced from our partner or someone else. I thought about, well, what am I utilizing the silent treatment or any of these other types of behaviors that I utilize against other people? What am I using that for? And so I was really thinking about what was he using it for? And the reality of the situation is that he wants my attention. And so when he uses the silent treatment, that's him saying, "Well, you're not giving me attention and you're not talking to me and you're not giving me what I need. And so I need something from you and I'm going to withhold these words from you because I think that's going to hurt you." And so we know that our kids do that often, but then it made me think about when we're picking our word for the year, if we don't really know where to start, what could be an indicator or clue that we need something and that we need to make something a goal. And so a lot of us have done the love language quiz and we know all about the 5 love languages, etc. But I don't think as many of us have delved into what the love languages tell us about ourselves. Like, what does the way we give love, not necessarily the way we receive love, but the way that we give love, what does that tell us about ourselves? Um, and I think that if we really go into like our core beliefs and figure out what it is that made us think that that thing was love, it's because we were lacking in that thing. Because we were lacking in that thing, then for us it was like if I would have received that, I would have felt love, and so that's the way we show love to other people. However, what happens when you don't feel self-love and you don't feel love from the world around you when you overindulge because of the love language? So let's say you're like, um, and I talk about this in the short that I did this week too. Let's say you're a gifts person, right? If you are a gifts person and gifts are the way that you show your love language, the way that you'll overindulge is in overspending. So spending makes you feel those endorphins, and those endorphins make you feel some sort of resemblance of self-love, even though that's not actually what it is because you're void of actually loving yourself. And so because of that, you're going to overspend because overspend makes you feel the feeling of love because gifts are your love language. If physical touch is your love language, you're going to go out and do, let's just say, unmoral behavior to indulge and overindulge in the physical touch that you need to make yourself feel self-love when it's actually not self-love, to begin with. If you're a quality time person, you'll go to all the events and act fake in front of all of the people just to have people around you. You'll have fake friends and relationships that aren't really for you, just for the sake of saying that feels like love. It's going to give me those endorphins and make me feel what self-love would actually feel like if I would actually, delve into really loving myself. If you're a words of affirmation person, there's probably a part of you that either gives the silent treatment, so you're going to withhold words, or you give yourself negative self-talk or overly express and indulge in positive self-talk, which exudes the feeling of confidence, but is actually just low self-esteem. So that might be the area that you're overindulging in to make yourself feel what it feels like to actually internally have the feeling of self-love, because self-love can't be replaced by things or doing of stuff, but we do that because we don't internally know how to give ourselves the love that we yearn for. And then if you're an acts person, like if you're a person who consistently feels the need to do stuff for other people to show them love, then you might experience the inability to rest and perfectionism, because in that inability to rest and perfectionism, it gives you the endorphins. A job well done makes you feel the same feeling that self-love would make you feel. And so why does that matter when we're picking our word of the year? Well, if you don't want to be on the hamster wheel of the way you show love becomes what you overindulge in, and what you overindulge in is an effort to feel self-love, then perhaps your word of the year needs to be the opposite of what that thing is. So if acts of service is yours and the toxic trait that you have is the inability to rest and perfectionism, then perhaps your word of the year needs to be rest. Perhaps you truly need to know how to let yourself rest and give yourself the opportunity to rest. Perhaps if you're one of those people that gifts is your love language and overspending is the toxic trait that's a result of that to feel the feeling of self-love, that you need to put yourself on some type of budget. And maybe your word of the year is something like restriction, because you need to restrict yourself from overindulging in monetary things in order to give yourself the feeling of self-love. Maybe you're one of those people who physical touch is your love language, and you're out here experiencing physical intimacy with a bunch of people. And maybe you need to make your word of the year something like internal love, right? Like the way that we figure out what our goal needs to be is to find whatever our toxic trait is. And if your toxic trait is something that you are unaware of, and you look for that love language, how you show people that you love them, and you notice that you're overindulging in the thing, like I can tell you that mine is acts of service. And there have been times where when I didn't feel self-love on the inside, I would absolutely not be able to sit still. I would try to earn people's love by doing things for them. And I would consistently try to earn my own self-love by doing more things and not allowing myself to rest. And so perhaps all of those toxic traits just need a focus, and maybe your word of the year is self-love. And maybe you need to figure out what that looks like for you and what it feels like to actually internally be loving to yourself. But I'm telling you that if you use indicators like your love language, you use indicators like how your shame shows up, you use indicators like what am I on the hamster wheel about, then your word of the year will show up, and your focus area needs to be that word. Much like how I was telling you the story about my 6-year-old and how when he gave me the silent treatment, it was an indicator for me of something that he needed. The things that you're doing that you know are attached to how you receive love and how you give love, if you're overindulging in a way that's like immoral to you or out of character for you, then your word of the year needs to be attached to that thing. And all of the words that you choose that are a result of that shame or the overindulgence, those words are going to be attached to self-love. Because if you don't have self-love, you'll continue to exude those toxic traits over and over again. So if you're having trouble picking your word of the year, try using that tactic If you need help landing on something, you absolutely can reach out to me on all social media sites. Send me a DM. I'd love to help you land on a word that's your focus word for the year. If you haven't already, remember that the Peace Podcast comes out every Monday. You can watch it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And then also go ahead and log into carrienicole.com where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter that comes out every Wednesday so that you can read about how I landed on my word of the year and how that is going to be my focus point and what was the purpose of me choosing that word. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you all, and happy word of the year finding, because having that focus word for the year is really going to get you to pinpoint the area of growth that you want to filter everything through so that you can really focus on making some changes and some growth for 2024.